Hello, friends. Hello, friends. A tradition unlike any other.
Oh, my goodness. In your life, have you seen anything like that?
There it is! Adam Scott, a life changer. Mashed potato!
Here it comes.
This is the 19th Tee podcast. Kieran Marsh, Nathan Drudy back with you for another week. Drudster, in the infamous words of Blink 182, a day late and a buck short for the podcast this week. But I must say that we here at 19th Tee Media, which is the parent company of the 19th Tee podcast, do subscribe to Australian industrial relations law. And we did give you your public holiday off yesterday in Western Australia, hence the delayed podcast for this week. But how are you, my friend? Did you enjoy the day off, courtesy of 19th Tee Media?
I did. I must admit it is. I only remembered it was a public holiday on like last Thursday because working from home at the moment, all the days just kind of blur into one. Like there's no set sort of schedule, but it was a very nice day off. Played some disc golf, actually, KM. Disc golf. I don't know if you're across what this is. I wasn't sure that I was going to enjoy it, and I've never played it before. It was very cool. I quite enjoyed it. So my arm is fucking killing me because I haven't used that muscle for quite some time. But it was good fun. I enjoyed it. So
is that the one where I see like the viral YouTube videos of guys that are flinging something through like rows of trees down to like essentially a hoop 500 meters away?
Mm-hmm. Yeah.
Right.
Way harder than it looks. It was good fun. Yeah.
And as you say, I haven't exercised that muscle since, seconds at Lasmurdy Mazenod Cricket Club. So
correct. That's exactly right.
It's been a little while. Look, plenty to get through.
Yeah.
Plenty to get through tonight. We're going to start here on our own shores, the TPS event in Sydney, Bonnie Doon Golf Club. Jarryd Felton, good friend of this podcast, a former guest, gets the 6th victory of his professional career, first in a while, Drudes, in really quite unusual circumstances. So I think we should say first and foremost, the fact that we got 3.5, 3.75 days of golf at all is a remarkable nod to the ground staff at Bonnie Doon, because as I'm sure you're seeing and our listeners are seeing and many of our listeners are experiencing in New South Wales, there is a biblical rain event occurring in Sydney in particular at present. It's come down from what we experienced here in Brisbane a few weeks ago, but the fact that there was any golf at all played, let alone the majority of a tournament, first and foremost, credit to the Bonnie Doon staff. But obviously what ended up happening, if people had missed it, is about halfway through the 4th round on Sunday, it became untenable and the round was abandoned. And then a decision was made that what they would do is revert to the 54-hole leaderboard. And at that stage, it was Jarryd Felton and Brendan James. Brendan Jones was the player he played against. Were both at 15 under at the end of Saturday's round, and they therefore went straight to a playoff. It only took the one hole though, because Jarryd Felton got the birdie courtesy of probably an 18 to 20 foot ridiculous putt, really, which is probably my shot of the week, thanks to the good friends at Sure Shot. But really just quite an unusual end to the tournament. Not to take anything away from Jarryd's victory, because I think, to be fair, it's probably even more impressive given he handled all of that mentally to come out on top.
Yeah, I mean, just 512 mil, I think someone told me, or did I read correctly the other day? 512, that is an absurd amount of rain. I can't say that I've ever experienced that much amount of rain, but look, great for Felts. Look, when it first happened and it reverted to the 54-hole thing, I was kind of like, oh, look, I don't love this, but and I was getting ready for another rant about the Aussie PGA, but at that point, you can't do much about it. And as you say, it was great that they just got to the level of play that they did. So, credit, I guess, to the Aussie PGA for making that decision, and massive credit, as you say, to the staff at Bonnie Doon for what they were able to pull off. I'm just trying to, you mentioned Sure Shot's shot of the week, which is, of course, thanks to the brand new Sure Shot Pinlock 6000 series of laser rangefinders, which, as we know, has all the good stuff and helps you play much better golf. I just am trying to pull up a scorecard here of Cade McBride, who had a hole-in-one on a par 4. So that's my Sure Shot shot of the week. So I don't think enough was made out of that, to be honest. It was just kind of
Saturday, I believe. And from memory, I'm going to get myself in trouble here because I'm shooting from the hip. I think it might have been the 12th hole.
Okay.
12th hole, par 4.
Okay.
Technically referred to as an albatross, but also an ace.
Yeah, hold on. I bone to pick here with the people of golf. That's a fucking hole-in-one.
Like, well, it is. It is. It is absolutely.
Like, yeah, no, it's not. It's a hole-in-one.
Well, I think so. I can see both sides of it, right? Because it is. It absolutely is a hole-in-one. So take nothing away from Cade McBride. He is the owner of a competition hole-in-one, even more impressive on a par 4.
Yeah.
But I think in defense of people calling it an albatross, the majority, when you say I got a hole-in-one, I would suggest 9 out of 10 people, maybe 9.5 out of 10 people, would automatically assume that it was done on a par 3. And hence, it took you one shot on a 3-shot hole. So an albatross actually makes it sound more impressive, right? Because you're 3 under the hole as opposed to 2 under the hole.
I agree, but that works for a par 5.
Yeah, look.
It's a hole-in-one.
It is a hole-in-one.
It's sick. It's sick to have it on a par 4. I love it. It just because I saw it, I was like, oh, he's just got an albatross. I was like, oh, this is great. Like, it's really cool. Like, generally that happens on a par 5. And then I looked it up and it was on a par 4. I was like, this is amazing. This is
phenomenal.
It's phenomenal. The best highlight that we've had on the tour all year. Anyway, we get sidetracked. Sorry.
I sold it short because I've said that Phelps' 18-footer was my shot of the week. Clearly that's, albeit, I've always deferred in this little segment, courtesy of our great friends at Sure Shot, to the moment as opposed to the actual shot. But yeah, that's made a fool of me because a hole-in-one on a par 4 is pretty impressive from Cade McBride. Just on Phelps, obviously, I mean, how good's that household going at present? It's 3 wins out of the Greene Felton household across this summer. Hannah's gone and had a top 10 in her first LPGA event of the year over in Singapore, and Jarrod's continued on the winning ways of that household. So really good to see him back in the winner's circle. I mentioned the 6th of his career. It has been a little time between drinks. Did see in the post, Randy spoke a lot about the fact he's been doing some work with a mindset coach, and that seems to be a bit of a common theme of late. We've spoken to Louis Dobler about his work with Ben Crowe. I spoke to Anthony Quayle last week about the balance and the peace of mind that he's finding on the course, and now Phelps, being very open about his work with his mindset coach. So clearly, people finding an edge there about, working on the mental side of their game, which is nothing new. Also, it was great to see, I don't know if you picked up on this, but Jarryd walked 3.5 rounds by himself. And then for the one and done playoff hole, he had James Marcazzani on the back on Sunday afternoon. So I'm not sure if Marca had too much to say on the read of that putt, but we'll certainly claim it because that's 2 former guests of this podcast and 2 good friends of this podcast involved in that victory.
Yeah.
So big congratulations to Jarryd. And yeah, as I said, I mean, I think I heard Jed Morgan say it's the best course from a drainage perspective that he's ever played on in the world. I don't think you can underestimate that. You mentioned 512 mils of rain. I think we had a bit over 700 mils here across the 48 hours of the flood event here in southeast Queensland, to give you some context. So like over 500 mils on that course. And I can tell you in the days since, it's probably been only more given what we've seen in Sydney. Just a remarkable effort from that ground staff to get even 3.5 days. And, Anthony Quayle joined us last week, and that was at the beginning of the week, and he said he'd be surprised they got any golf in at that stage, and that was Monday evening. So to play Thursday, Friday, Saturday, and then a part of Sunday was an awesome thing to see. I'm glad they played ahead. So congratulations to them. Congratulations to Braith Anasta as well for running another fantastic tournament there. And they move up the road, Druids, up to the Central Coast, TPS Hunter Valley. Announced today that, again, unfortunately, the weather, it's been reduced to a 54-hole event. So they've taken out around, I think, just to give the course there. Is it the Cypress Oaks?
Oaks, Cypress Lakes.
There you go. It's a beautiful course. There's a couple of really nice ones there. I drove past it. I played a course called the Vintage. Greg Norman designed a course called the Vintage there a couple of years ago when I was in town for a wedding, and drove past the neighbouring property, which was the Oaks course. It's a beautiful course. But yeah, courtesy of the rain, that has been reduced to a 54-hole event. But all the order of merit leaders are descending in on the Hunter Valley, because it's this event. You've got the New South Wales Open the week following, which is really the last big purse event on offer at $400,000 for the New South Wales Open. And the whips are cracking, as they say in racing parlance, Drews, from an order of merit perspective as we head up to the Central Coast.
Mate, I'm looking forward to it. And I just wanted to shout out quickly, I love the fact that the tours got out ahead of this and reduced it to a 54-hole. I think that's great forward planning from them. We do, as we always say, give them plenty of brickbats, but I think this is a really good decision. It's smart. They know that they're not going to get it in, and credit to them for making the decision. So gives the team down there at Oaks, Cypress Lakes, a little bit more time to get everything ready, get it, championship ready for whatever that means. But looks like a really good decision that Nick Dasty and the team have made there for the TPS Hunter Valley, which is hosted by, if I just do my research half correctly, I think it's Jan Stevenson and Peter O'Malley, maybe?
It is.
I'm doing that correctly, KM? So, yeah, no, really good. Looking forward to this week as well. So, sorry to get sidetracked. The order of merit, I did want to just mention, there was something that I picked up on around Andrew Dote. So, he has headed off to the Asian Tour to play a bunch of tournaments. So, game on, I think.
Interesting.
I think it opens. Jed locked up, done. He's got a spot, whether it's 1, 2, or 3, he's got a spot. Quayle Papadakis snapping at the heels of Andrew Dote. So 107,000 for Andrew Dote. Quayle 93K, Dimmy 90K. Louis Dobler won't be far off heading back to the other side of the pond, 84K. But then we've got Kennedy, Campbell, Gale, our man, Gailey, Cameron John, David Micheluzzi, Aaron Pike, Jack Thompson, Jake McLeod. So it's game on, I reckon, here, KM.
Absolutely. And this is a $200,000 purse this week. Mixed gender event, first event from a PGA Tour of Australasia perspective in the Hunter Valley for more than a decade.
Yeah.
So great to see professional golf heading back to that region, a beautiful golf region of the country. But yeah, you're absolutely right, Druids. I mean, we keep talking. It's those top three spots earn their DP World Tour cards for next year. European Tour, not to give a free kick to DP World, pay to play. And of course,
would we take DP World as a sponsor?
Well, open to the conversation. It's not. I mean, geez, it's not the SGL, is it? We open almost all doors in terms of an initial conversation. Anywho, I say that with very little context to whatever the fuck DP World actually do. So
they're an oil company out of the Emirates.
Yeah, right, out of the Emirates.
Close.
That's good.
Careful.
I'm sure it's a very clean operation.
I'll tell you what, the oil price at the moment, holy dooly.
Wow. Anyway, let's not get sidetracked into Vlad and his mates. Where was I? You've completely skittled my
order of merit,
crude oil points. So obviously we keep talking about what's on offer. It's the 3 European Tour cards, and of course for the person who tops the order of merit, and we think that's going to be Jed at this point in time. But now, as we flagged last week, the extra carrot of a spot in the US Open at Brookline Country Club this year. So yeah, it's a fascinating decision from Andrew Dote. Clearly, it's only one of two things. He thinks he's done enough, or he thinks that he can find a way to reach either of those things via the Asian Tour. So, yeah, certainly I think opens up. You'd think, given where things are at, it's probably Quayle and Dimmy. It's theirs to lose, but certainly a number of people biting at their heels. So, there has been a bit of news, though, significant to the order of merit race, and Drews, that's the fact that another event has been added to the schedule between now and the end of the season. It will go, I believe, in the spot in terms of the schedule that was set aside for the New Zealand swing of events. Generally, the Tour of Australasia heads to New Zealand, where we get, the wonderful golf on the South Island, whether it's between the Hills, Millbrook, a little bit of Jacks Point sometimes. It's generally in that kind of Queenstown area, which, one of my favourites. But unfortunately, due to border restrictions from a New Zealand perspective, those tournaments had to be canned this year. And the tour has announced a replacement tournament in that window to ensure that players have every opportunity to vie for those final spots in the order of merit.
Yeah, the National PGA Classic played out at the National Golf Course as well. One of the great gems of this country is the National. So that will take place 5th to the 8th of April, 200,000 up for grabs. So the same as the TPS events that have been running. So really the next 3 weeks, I think, will go probably decide who wins those 3 European Tour cards. You've got TPS Hunter Valley with 200K up for grabs, then the New South Wales Open, which is the big one, 400,000, and then this fantastic event at the National up for grabs at 200K. After that is the WA events and the NT PGA. Great events, but probably not going to be too much shaking of the tree in terms of the order of merit. Again, KM, I know people might think we're a little ill here with the level of praise that we're giving the PGA on this pod, but fantastic to see. I think, this is a really great move from the tour to get out in front of, again, a disappointing decision from obviously New Zealand's government that they can't get in. So to, I guess, land a tournament at a course like the National is fantastic. So I'm really looking forward to this one. I think is in terms of courses that are left on the tour, Marshy, Oak Cypress Lakes, Concord, the National, Kalgoorlie, Royal Freo, and Palmerston. One of those stands out above the rest. That's the National, and I'm very much looking forward to seeing professional golf back out there. So I'm really, really excited, and a pat on the back to the PGA.
Yeah, and absolutely not to take away from any of the other courses, because there's some rippers in there as well. But
there are
professional golf on the PGA Tour of Australasia back at the National is a really exciting prospect, and credit to both the tour and to the club as well. I mean, make no mistake, a club like the National, while in many people's eyes they might feel it's easier for them to just take on a tournament like this at short notice, it's probably more difficult, to be fair. Infrastructure-wise, they're set up, but the management with members and bumping things in and out of a place like that at short notice, not easy. So credit to the club as well for, yep, absolutely, we want to be involved and we want to move mountains to make this happen. And I think it'll be a great event. So looking forward to that one. Anything else, Truds, on the domestic front before we head overseas?
No, I was just going to say, again, obviously these New Zealand events were only cancelled less than a month ago, I think. So for it to all come together in the space of 3 or 4 weeks, really, as you say, is a credit to the team at the National and the PGA as well. And I'm sure the players are very appreciative of another opportunity to get out on the course. So that was my last little bit that I wanted to add.
The Arnold Palmer Invitational on the PGA Tour, Scotty Scheffler, a winner for the second time in 3 weeks. How's this, Trude? So took him 71 starts to crack through for his first victory. He has his second inside 73. We mentioned it a couple of weeks ago when he took the win in Phoenix, it was, that is this a sign potentially of the floodgates opening, given the quality of this guy and how surprising it is to say that was his first PGA Tour victory. 2 weeks later, he does it again, or 3 weeks later, sorry, he does it again at a place that, honestly, when you look at the scoring average for Saturday and Sunday in the mid-70s, and it was nasty to watch. Probably a little bit too. I mean, we talk a lot about in this podcast how we enjoy watching the pros struggle at times. That might have been a little bit too much. They may have over-indexed the Bay Hill there, but Scotty Scheffler got it done when all others around him were falling for his second PGA Tour victory.
Yeah, a really, really good performance, I guess, in the face of pressure. from Scotty Scheffler. His game's clearly in a great place at the moment with an even par 72 today. I mean, I must admit, it was. I mean, we'll get to Lucas Herbert in a moment, but for a moment there, it kind of looked like Lucas was in with a genuine shot. But I must admit that I was really hoping that Tyrrell hadn't got over the line here. I like Tyrrell, and I just would have loved to see it happen. And what I did want to say about Scotty Scheffler is, by gee, he fills out that cardigan well. He's a big unit, is Scotty Scheffler. So, no, just as a bit of a laugh there.
Still one of my favourite trophies. Obviously, there is the trophy, but then the red cardigan is one of my favourites on tour, and a nod to the great man, the king that was Arnold Palmer. What did you think of the course? Bay Hill, again, I said this a lot in the lead up, that this patch, Riv, I can take or leave Honda, Bay Hill, you add in Phoenix at the beginning of that run as we head into the Players this week. It's one of my favourite stretches of time. I don't know if that's this week in particular, if that's more the tournament or the course. I think it is more the tournament. I like Bay Hill, but as I kind of flagged before, I think maybe we overcooked it a little bit this week when you've got a scoring average in the middle of the 70s on the weekend. You got guys losing shots like it's going out of fashion across Saturday and Sunday, when you really look to see your most competitive golf when the tournament's on the line. And I thought this was a really interesting stat. So Shane Bacon, for people who are right into their golf, is an American golf commentator. He hosts the Breakfast Show on Golf Channel over in the States. He's one of my favourite commentators. I really like Shane Bacon's work. Tweet from him at the conclusion of the tournament. How valuable is even par? A look at where even for the week puts you on the PGA Tour in 2022. So at the Tournament of Champions in Kapalua, you would have finished dead last if you finished even par. Sony, you would have missed the cut. The American Express, you would have missed the cut. The Farmers, T67, finishing even par. Pebble, missed the cut. Phoenix, T60. Riviera, T67. Honda, T16. This week at the Arnold Palmer, if you finished even par, you're in a tie for 11th and taking home just short of $300,000. To give you an indication of how, and yes, the conditions, like it was blowy, certainly, but the greens were completely burnt out.
Dead.
There was very little reward. Like, we can take punishing bad shots, but when we're not rewarding good shots, that's a problem. And you saw it, in a lot of the comments post round. We don't like seeing pros whinge about courses, but when it's consistent and there's a large group of them rather than isolated voices. I mean, you've got Rory McIlroy using the word penal far many more times than I'd like to hear. Maybe just once or twice, not 4 times, Rory, in the space of 2 sentences.
Be careful.
Yeah, very careful. It was, I'm not sure. I think it lost me a little bit. Like, I love to see a guy like Scotty Scheffler, and ultimately he had to do it. Gary Woodland, I think, eagled the 16th and then absolutely shat himself coming home. So you've still got to win, and Scheffler absolutely did that. But I just think there was some things there across the weekend from a course perspective that took a little bit of sting, I think, out of the finishing stages of the tournament.
Yeah, I thought there were some pretty average pin positions just in general. I think just going back through them, number 8, was you had to go right over the water if you wanted to have a crack at it. And I'm not saying, I think, to your point, we love tough setups. We definitely love tough setups. But I thought today,
for sure,
was too much. I mean, you look at some of the positions on the back nine. 13 was in a horrible position, like literally on the edge of the water. So there was no chance to make birdie. And I think there should be an opportunity for players. If you execute the shot well, you should be able to make a birdie on a hole. I don't think you should ever be punished for hitting a good shot, as you said. So I think you look at holes like 13, where the pin position was today, 16, where the pin position was, 17 was horrible, just over that bunker, 176-yard par 3. And you've got to carry a bunker. And if you carry the bunker, the ball's going through the back. Like, so what? I don't really understand what the play is. 18 is even in a tough position. So,
well, I don't know if you saw. So sorry to interject.
No.
So Victor Hovland, right? Victor Hovland was probably Scheffler's primary competition in the closing stages. As I said, Woodland had exited unceremoniously. Hatton probably wasn't really threatening with his best golf at the back end, and Hovland really felt like the one taking the charge up. Horschel maybe to a lesser extent, but again, probably got the consequences of chasing the win. Hovland's approach into 18 was insane. So you've got that, the kind of L bend green around the water, and the pin position on 18 on Sunday is the back right. So you have to fly the water into, you're talking maybe 8 meters of green, edge to or fringe to fringe. And he flew it over the water and had every right to think that he'd get a little bit of help from the rough beforehand and roll out onto the green. Like that shot takes enormous nuts.
Yeah.
And we know he's got him, and it died dead in the rough, and he finds himself, a foot or two off the green. He's putting from off the green for a birdie to keep himself in the tournament. That's frustrating, right? Because that shot from a guy who's a shot back, he's on 18, he's in arguably the toughest pin position of the day. He's got a water hazard to fly. You ask him the question and he answers it and isn't rewarded. That for me is like, I'm not, what's the point, right?
Yeah.
Like what are we doing? I'm all for testing, but that you've tested him, you've asked a question and he's answered it. And is well within his rights to expect a better answer.
No, I agree. I thought this week was too much. And that's probably as simple as it was. I thought it was a combination of the conditions, whether that was intentionally dried out the way it was. I thought the pin positions were pretty average. And look, I know you like Bay Hill, but the more that I look at it, there's some of the holes there that I just don't think are that great. Like, I don't know. I just don't think that some of the, and it's largely to do with where the pin positions are. But you look at like the par threes on the back nine, like 172 yard par three with a bunker in front and the pin basically 3 steps on and 1 step from the side. Like, what's the point? Like, we're better off throwing the pin in the middle and at least allowing guys to have a go, because where those pin positions were, particularly on Sunday, was irrelevant. Like, there was no reward for hitting a good shot, because if you flew it to where you would normally fly it, it was running through the green, and it doesn't make for good watching. Like, I want to watch guys win at 5 under. Don't get me wrong. That's what I want to see. Way better than watching guys win at 25 under. But when the conditions in the setup don't allow for guys to your point, answer the test, it seems like a waste of time to me.
I think to your point, I'd be much happy to watch guys win at 10 to 12 under, rewarded for good shots.
Absolutely. Yeah, 100%.
Yeah, look, I think as I said, maybe it's more the tournament than the course. I'm a bit unashamedly a big Arnie guy. Like, when I look back in history,
I've got nothing against Arnie.
This way, no, I'm not trying to suggest rest in peace, King. I'm not trying to suggest that you do, and this is probably an unpopular opinion. When I look back historically at that period of golf, I'm a much bigger Arnie guy than I'm a Jack guy, right? And that's maybe a little bit sacrilegious to say, but I think maybe the whole aura and mystique around Arnie's tournament and Arnie's place gets to me a little bit, but also why maybe I'm disappointed that therefore the tournament should reflect and the course should reflect the significance of that tournament, because he is such a significant figure in the game. You hate to see the end product being players walking out on a Sunday complaining about the course, not the result you want. So needs to be looked at. One person who didn't complain about the course roads was our very own Lucas Herbert, who shot the low round of Sunday a 68. So bear in mind the context of all we've just spoken about for the last 5 minutes. Bear in mind the context of what I said earlier, that the scoring average across both Saturday and Sunday was somewhere between 74 and 76. So mid-70s, Lucas Herbert is 6 to 7 shots better than the field on Sunday to hit the low round. He started the day in 30-30, finishes in a tie for 7th. Not only does he shoot himself up from a rankings and a FedEx Cup points perspective, but I would suggest a significant increase in his pay that he took home as well. And so just important that we single out the performance of Lucas Herbert because, you know, we've spoken a lot about him. He's a winner this year on the tour for the first time. He's a guy that really pushed all his chips on the table and made the move to America and is continuing, albeit not terribly consistently, but he's showing us on a regular enough basis what he's capable of to know that he absolutely belongs on the best tour in the world.
Yeah, absolutely. I thought it was really strong performance from a guy, as you mentioned, who's really just starting his career on the PGA Tour and to go to a place like Bay Hill to compete for a tournament. I mean, this is an elevated event, I'm fairly certain, but to go to that sort of place in the condition that it was in, with the conditions that they got today, I thought was really, really impressive. And so, yeah, hopefully it gives him a world of confidence. Hopefully it leads well. I mean, we're going into some significant tournaments coming up in the next sort of stretch. So, hopefully it gives him some confidence to know that he can match it with the genuine best in the world.
In terms of other Australians in the field, Adam Scott finished in a tie for 26 at 4 over. The next best Australian was Matt Jones in a tie for 52 at 8 over. The only other Australian that made the cut was Mark Leishman in a tie for 68 at 11 over. And then Cam Davis and Minji Lee both did not play on the weekend.
I was just going to say Matt Jones did what I'm sure a lot of people thought and threw the putter in the lake. The
11th?
Yeah, I don't know what number it was, but
it was early. When I say early, it wasn't front nine, but I'm pretty sure it was 11th or 12th. So he's putted with the wedge.
Sick, love it.
For 6-7 holes.
He's done a lot. He's done what a lot of people thought they wanted to do. So
yeah.
Anyway,
I mean, he acted when a lot of people were thinking it. But good on you, Jonesy. That's the ability to putt with the wedge. I remember who was it? It was Siwoo Kim snapped his putter at the Masters last year when he was like 2 or 3 shots off the lead.
Leash did it. Leash did it earlier as well.
Yeah, on 16, and Siwoo Kim putted the last, I think, 3 holes with his 3-wood.
Love that.
Yeah,
Love it.
It's funny. I've never been. I'm not playing professionally or a lot of money or any money at all, really. But I've never been in a position where I want to snap a club over my knee. It's just never or throw it. It's just not me. I don't know. It's interesting. And I'm sure when there's a lot more on the line, your emotions get the better of you. But I was like, whoa, Jonesy. Wow.
Good on him. Love it.
LPGA Druids got their season back underway in earnest for 2022 in Singapore. So this is a significant event, the HSBC. It's known as, and I try and say this as delicately as humanly possible, it is known as the Asian Major on the LPGA. Obviously, this swing, because they're off to Thailand this week on the LPGA, but this swing is significant. And this event in particular, the HSBC Women's World Championship, was a completely stacked field. I want to put a statement to you now and get your immediate reaction. Jin Young Ko is currently the best golfer in the world.
Wow. Is that right?
Well,
is that your opinion?
That's
or
my
is that
opinion.
me?
No, that's my opinion, and I want to get your immediate reaction to that statement.
That's a big call.
Were you
male or female?
Best golfer in the world, period.
Yeah, I'd have to think about it, but
let me make my case.
Certainly up there. Yeah, please.
Marinate on it while I make my case. Yeah. So Birdie's 5 of her final 6 holes here at the HSBC to finish with a Sunday 66, 2 shots ahead of Inji Chun and our very own Minji Lee, has won 6, including this tournament, of her past 10 starts. Courtesy of a victory here, she broke the record for most consecutive rounds in the 60s and most consecutive rounds under par in LPGA Tour history. And I believe now sits somewhere in the vicinity of, I think it was 122 of her last 135 greens in regulation. So she is in some otherworldly form. I think her finishes as well. So I said 6 of her last 10. In the other 4 tournaments, she didn't finish any lower than T6th.
Right.
So I'm saying power rankings of any golfer in the world, male or female, right now, take a sample. I don't think there's a better golfer than Jin Young Ko right now.
Right. Or I'll still say Colin Morikawa. I'll give you.
Wow.
I think Colin Morikawa, he's had 6 top 10s. Yeah. What am I counting here? 1, 2, 3, 4, 5, 6 top 10s in his last 8 starts, including a win and 2 seconds. So, that's hard. That's a great question.
Jin Young Ko's had 10 top 10s in her last 10 starts.
I know. Oh, Jesus, that is very tough, Cam. That's a very tough call. I need to marinate on this a little bit more, to use your term before. So I'm sure you could make a case for a lot of players, but there's no doubt that she is playing some scarily good golf at the moment. And yeah, probably the 2-shot winning margin at the Sentosa Golf Club was probably not a true reflection of how well she played, to be honest.
Wouldn't have thought so. Mentioned Minji Lee, low round of Sunday, 63 Droots to catapult into a tie for second, and courtesy of that finish takes her world ranking to number 4. We spoke about the fact that Minji Lee was probably, I think, I can't remember if I said this at the back end of last year, and we're kind of looking at reviewing and looking ahead to 2022. I believe I said that either Minji Lee or Cam Smith would be our next major winner, and that I felt Minji was probably the best chance. And she only continues to reaffirm my belief in that fact. We speak so much about the next wave of Australian women's golf. We got caught up in the back-to-back victories of Hannah Greene, who finished in the tie for 6, by the way, in this tournament. A very good performance for her own, only 4 shots back from Jin Young Ko. But goodness me, Minji Lee kind of has a break back in Perth, goes to work at Royal Fremantle, spends some time at home to replenish and recharge, makes a first start back in Singapore, and hits a Sunday 63 to finish in a tie for second and jump to number 4 in the world, and shows us exactly why. She's our premier women's golfer and might be our best Australian golfer in the world right now.
Yeah, no, I completely agree. I think she's the best chance that we've got right now to win a major. So very, very good performance from her and Hannah Greene as well. And the other couple of Aussies in the field. I think Suo finished T26 and Sarah Kemp was T56 as well. So good performances generally all round from the ladies on the LPGA.
So the LPGA moves to Thailand, as I mentioned this week. Drudes, we're going to jump around here quickly for a couple of other stories. I know you wanted to talk briefly about the DP World Tour, as did I. So I'll let you go first to talk about the winner of the magical Kenyan Open this past week on the DP World Tour.
Yeah, well, I just wanted to shout out Ashen Wu. 69, 68, 66, 65, finishing at 16 under, blitzing the field, 4-shot winner over Aaron Cockrell of Canada, Tristan Lawrence of South Africa, and Hurley Long, which is a fantastic name from Germany, Hurley Long. My man Adrian now finishing inside the top 10, but Ashen Wu, I thought it was just worth mentioning that he has jumped up from 72nd to 23rd in the international team standing for the President's Cup, which, of course, will finish up at the end of the BMW Championship later in the year. Enormous jump, finds himself ahead of guys like Adam Hadwin, Dylan Fratelli, Ryan Fox, Charles Schwartzel, a few of these guys, that names have been thrown around, Matty Jones. So he could be this year's Hao Tong Lee, who kind of qualifies into the international team by playing on the European Tour and just winning a bunch of events. So shout out Ashen Wu. That's all I wanted to say.
Look, I hope he's not Haotong Lee in application.
I agree.
If he does make the team. Jesus, doesn't Trevor Illman have some choices to make?
Yes,
I don't know if you saw, did you see the photo? So he got a group together ahead of the Arnold Palmer Invitational for a dinner. And it was probably a group of 20, 25. A number of Australians were there. I think Leash was there. Lucas Herbert was there. Min Woo was there. Kem Davis was there. But again, really, I probably think most people that you'd refer to as in his thinking for the international team, certainly not an indicative indication of who will be in the team, but like a broad, let's get together for dinner and have a chat. And I looked across that group and I got pretty bloody excited. I don't know about you. We said this a couple of weeks ago, genuinely believe the international team will be a bigger threat to the Americans in the President's Cup than the European team will be in the Ryder Cup in coming years, given what we have coming down the pipeline from guys who are kind of 25 and under. It's insane.
Yeah.
Insane, the talent that we have on the international team.
Definitely agree. Certainly looking forward to it. Did you have anything else from Kenya?
I want to talk to you about a guy called Paul Chidali.
Okay. Talk to me about Paul.
You would have never heard this name. And I want to make mention to Monday Q Info. If you're not following Monday Q Info on Twitter or on Instagram, he is one of the great follows on golf social. So this is a guy who's deeply embedded in the, as the name suggests, Monday qualifier scene, and likes to highlight the stories, Drew, out of the Monday qualifying scene each and every week on the various tours around the world. Posted a photo after the opening round of the Magical Canyon Open of Paul Chidale. I'll see if I can bring it up here, and this is really poor radio, but can you see that? That's Paul Chidale.
Yeah, okay. In the full orange, is it?
In the full orange.
Okay.
So let me tell you the Paul Chidale story, courtesy of Monday Q Info. Pro golfer from Malawi. Malawi, one of the poorest nations in the entire world from a GDP perspective. One 18-hole golf course in the entire country. Paul Chidale opened with a 67 in the opening round of the Magical Canyon Open to sit T9. Now, look, he did shoot a 77 to miss the cut on Friday, but this is a guy who comes from a country with one golf course in the entire nation and sat inside the top 10 after the opening round of the Kenyan Open. And I thought that Paul Chidale was certainly worth a mention here on the 19th tee this evening.
Great call. Love it. Love that little bit of tidbit. That's the sort of stuff that we live for as well. Last one, sorry, shout out Blake Windred. Didn't play his best golf, but he was over in Kenya playing, finished T65. Didn't play his best golf, but shout out Blake.
Similarly, on the same sort of vein, I want to talk about Ryan Brem, who won the Puerto Rico Open, Drew, this week. It was the alternate field event to the Arnold Palmer Invitational. Ryan Brem's not a name that a lot, if many at all, golf fans here in Australia would be familiar with. But listened actually to a podcast, the No Laying Up podcast with Harry Higgs, and Harry Higgs said that he's one of the most popular members of either tour, that's the Corn Ferry or the PGA, amongst his peers, and an effortless driver of the ball, to give you an idea of where his strengths lie. Why is his win at the Puerto Rico Open significant? Well, he had one start remaining on his minor medical exemption, courtesy of the PGA Tour, and he decided to roll the dice here at the Puerto Rico Open. He's got his wife, Chelsea, on the bag, who generally carries the clubs for him. He's had a certainly tough trot of it in the last 12 months. Also lost his mother to cancer late last year. Needed to finish atop the field or solo second and get the job done in Puerto Rico. And I believe he's off to the Players this week as a result, and has his tour status locked up. So I love seeing that I love seeing any tour in the world, whether it's stories like Paul Chidale's or Ryan Brem's, where it just means a little more. I think we've spoken about that in recent weeks, where you see a guy like that who's had a few things thrown at him in recent years that means his career hasn't necessarily followed the trajectory he thought, and backs against the wall and gets it done under pressure. Not the pressure of winning a tournament because I've won 3 already, but literally winning a tournament to keep my status and keep earning a living in this game that I love. So just wanted to shout out to Ryan Brem as well.
No, that's a very good one. I did have one, from the Puerto Rico Open as well. I wanted to shout out Chris Gotterup. Name probably no one knows, wouldn't have heard. He is currently a redshirt senior at the University of Oklahoma, the Sooners. So transfer from Rutgers, so came across from Big 12 down and playing at Oklahoma. Very good golfing school, not quite the same as their rival down the road at Oklahoma State. But shout out to Chris. He finished, I think, at like 11 under or something like that. So, just wanted to shout him out. I think he was actually a lot higher up the leaderboard than that for a fair amount of it. Shout out Chris Gotterup. Love seeing those little stories. And I guess that's why the Puerto Rico Open can stay on the schedule, because you get some of those little interesting stories. Otherwise, it's crap.
For as much as we should get up in the field events, we've said it in the past that it provides platforms for these players, and that's so important. We can often lose sight when we get whisked away by the romantic notion of the top 0.0001% of absolute generational talents on the tour. That there are 300 to 400 guys that play across tours in the States, and many more than that around the world. And it's often the other 390 that you need to sustain. So it is good to see. Yep. Druids, just finally before we go, I think and it would certainly be remiss of us not to say anything at all, but it may well have been remiss of us to leave it to now. But we as a country, I think, but certainly the game of golf, given his love and his passion for it, lost a giant. I think it would be fair to say in the past week. It's even difficult now, a couple of days following the news of Shane Warne's passing, to really put it into words. But as I said, a person that certainly for you and I growing up probably defined a lot of how we felt about a game that we both love in cricket, and as we've come to see, an incredible supporter and lover of the game of golf. I don't really know what I want to say other than to acknowledge the fact that we certainly shouldn't let this episode pass without at least mentioning and probably acknowledging how sad it has been these past few days. And I don't know about you, but for me, it still seems a little surreal. Like I still feel like I will sit and tune into the cricket coverage at the beginning of next summer and find it odd that I don't hear his voice. It's quite strange to try and wrap your head around, really.
It is, yeah. I must admit, I was asleep on Friday night or Saturday night or whenever it was, and my fiance ran in and told me that Shane Warne had died, and I was, taken aback. Jumped on Twitter, and as you go to verify everything, you go to Twitter and saw the tweets. And I know a lot of people weren't fans of Warnie's commentary. He's been shit canned a lot, but what I loved about Warnie is a very, very smart cricketer. I quite enjoyed him actually in the commentary box. He was passionate. He wanted Australia to win. There was a genuine sense of bias when he was in the commentary box, and I love that. And I don't think many other commentators have that. And you're absolutely right, Marshy. He was an icon growing up. He made spin bowling cool, which I don't think anyone else could really do. So he was a giant of cricket. He loved his golf, as you obviously mentioned. He was a name that I was going through today that we had on our list to try and reach out to. I'm sure we'd reached out to him previously, and I reckon he would have been a wonderful chat. So he's certainly going to be missed across both cricket and golfing codes as well. So
it's interesting, like I think obviously there's so many sides to Warnie. I think if there's one thing that has been overwhelming for me in terms of the coverage of his passing. And, there is an irony in the fact that without a doubt, the greatest collective show of admiration as a country that we've given to him comes after he's died. Like that's always seems to be the case, and it's cruel in many respects because, to your point, he was polarizing at times when he was alive. But I think if there's one thing you can learn from him, amongst many, it's that he was unapologetically himself.
Yeah,
and there's not many people who are like that these days, right? There's not many people who aren't pliable, depending on the situation they're in or the people they're around or the circumstances in their life at that time. He was always unapologetically himself. And that in so many ways is such an admirable quality. It might rub you up the wrong way. You might not agree. In fact, at times you might vehemently disagree, but you couldn't fault him. He wasn't inconsistent. He certainly wasn't hypocritical. He was just warning. And that's, I think that if you put his remarkable on-field achievements to one side, it's interesting. I think that maybe for a lot of it, we felt like we knew and appreciated what we had in him. And I think maybe what's become clear post his passing is that we had probably barely scratched the surface. I feel.
Yeah,
a guy that was incredibly rounded and complex and deep individual, but one at the same time who just had this genuine sense of humor and larrikinism that I think this country resonated with resoundingly.
Yeah, no, it's very well put. I was listening to Kerry O'Keefe talk about him, and I love Scull. I think he's another one that some people don't really like Scull, and I disagree with all of them, but I like Scull. And he said that Warnie was never wrong. He was always right. He backed it till the day that, he was like, this is it. I'm right. Mitchell Stark's first ball of the Ashes was what he referenced. Didn't swing. So you could see it swinging, Warnie.
Moved a mile.
I'm right. It didn't swing, and I loved it. And I think that's what we love about Shane Warne. And there was also, some great stuff on Twitter and great debate that was where, I guess, in a country like America where cricket's not big, and that's where all the greatest of all time athletes always are referred to, is where does he fit in as the greatest of all time cricketer? And you could certainly make a case that he is the greatest cricketer that the world has ever seen. I think you could make a case, and it was interesting. I can't remember who said it, but they were talking about there were very few people in sport, or there are very few people in sport that can do what Shane Warne did in be so good and change the needle in so many different ways. And he was such a showman. And this person who was talking, I can't remember who it was, referred to Kobe Bryant. And he was like, he's like, for me, it's Kobe Bryant and Shane Warne that are the only two that were able to do that. I can't remember who it was that was talking about it, but it was very, very interesting to listen. So yeah. Pretty crappy week for Australian cricket, KM.
Yeah, I mean it's we shouldn't also forget Bacchus, Rodney Marsh, who to lose the two of them in the space of 24 hours was, like Shane is a once in a generation player and arguably one of the greatest of all time. You can't understate the contribution that Rodney Marsh made to cricket as a player, as an administrator, selector. It feels like there's a whole, a significant void that's been left by way of their passing. And just the outpouring. It was a really powerful image. I don't know if you saw it today out of the domestic one-day cup. The Western Australia played Victoria today, and they paused pre-game and they stood either side of the pitch in a moment's silence, and just stuff like that. I think it's going to take a little while, I think, for people to probably fully process it and get back on their feet. And the plans for Warnie's memorial at MCG, probably 90,000 people will turn up. And we haven't seen something like that. Yeah, in Kobe, I kind of feel like it's our Australian Kobe moment, right? Because it's that he touched so many people far beyond cricket. And I think that the outpouring of grief collectively as a nation in the past, 3 to 4 days has been evidence of that. So yeah, it's terribly sad, and then terribly sad, none more so for his kids, which it must be so hard, to go through. Like I've been there, and it's incredibly difficult to mourn a parent, but to do that when it's been done with a whole country,
worldwide,
it's unimaginable. It's unimaginable what his 3 kids are going through at the moment. So yeah, we certainly think of them. So look, as I said, Drew, it's a somber way to end, but it would have been inappropriate for us to not, given his love of the game of golf, but also probably the mark that he probably left on both of our childhoods, it would have been completely inappropriate for not to acknowledge Warnie's passing.
No, I agree.
So
players this week.
Players week, great week. We take
major.
the piss out of the 5th major, but it's a great week. It is a great tournament. You get out, and it's literally outside of the 4 majors, you don't get a field like you get this week. And so if you're not doing any sort of family or otherwise commitments, you should be glued to the television this weekend, because it'll be great golf there from TPC Sawgrass. A couple of good interviews. Yeah, wow. Okay. Justin Thomas.
JT, go back to back.
What about you?
I'm just looking at the field list here. I will. This will get you excited, just because I like the way he's playing. But I'll give you Jordan Spieth this week. I love the way he's playing. Love the way he's driving the ball. I think he's in very good touch. I think. Look, I'll say I think he's going to give us a very good performance. I think he's in great form. All roads leading to Augusta. Could also miss the cut. And that's the JS experience. It's exactly what it is. The
experience. So. And I got to tell you, mate, with Augusta National on the horizon, I could not give 2 shits if he misses the cut this week. No, as long as he puts in a performance over 4 days in April, that's all we care about.
Exactly right.
A couple of good things coming down the pipeline. We've got Blake Collier a little later this week. We've got Aaron Wilkin locked in for next week. Another one out of the Searoo Sports stable. So I'm sure there'll be some good stuff there with Aaron Wilkin, and plenty of others in the pipeline as well. So make sure you have subscribed if you haven't already, rated if you haven't already, and follow us on the socials at 19th Tee Podcast. Plenty of good stuff coming. Drew, so it's been a pleasure, as always, my friend, to have your company, and we'll be back a little later in the week with Blake Collier.